There are moments in life when the world feels unbearably loud, not because of sound, but because of constant movement. The endless scroll, the chatter of goals, the rush to fill every second. We call it progress, productivity, connection. But somewhere between the noise, something softer begins to fade, the quiet place inside us that once made sense of it all. And when the noise finally stops, many of us realize we no longer know how to be still. Silence, once a friend, now feels like a stranger. Most people are not afraid of silence because it is empty. They're afraid of it because it is full of thoughts they've postponed, feelings they've buried, questions they've avoided. We live in a time where stillness feels like failure. If you sit alone too long, the world starts to wonder what's wrong with you. You feel the pull to check something, to fix something, to move somewhere, anywhere but here. A person wakes up and immediately reaches for their phone. Another works late into the night, not because they love the task, but because the quiet waiting at home feels heavier. Even moments meant to be restful, a walk, a meal, a weekend, become filled with sound. Silence exposes what noise conceals. It has no filter, no distraction, no applause. It holds up a mirror and asks us to look without turning away. And for many, that is the hardest thing, to meet themselves in stillness without running back into the crowd. But silence is not punishment. It is the beginning of understanding. Psychologists say the mind often speaks loudest when it has been ignored too long. Thoughts, like children, grow restless when unheard. The endless consumption of sound, music, videos, conversations, keeps us from noticing the quiet whispers that guide us. In ancient traditions, silence was not emptiness but presence. Monks, philosophers, and mystics all stepped away from noise not to escape life, but to listen more deeply to it. They believed that in silence, truth rearranges itself, that wisdom is less something we acquire and more something that returns once the static fades. Modern life has forgotten this rhythm. We confuse silence with loneliness, solitude with isolation, rest with laziness. But when we look closer, we realize silence has always been speaking, we just forgot its language. Because silence tells the truth that sound cannot. It reveals the tone beneath our words, the motive behind our choices, the ache beneath our ambition. It reminds us that the loudest parts of life, success, approval, control, are often built upon quieter foundations, meaning, peace, and inner balance. There comes a moment when a person grows tired of hearing everything but themselves. They start to notice the exhaustion hidden behind their constant engagement, how being available to everything leaves them present for nothing. In that moment, silence no longer feels like absence. It begins to feel like a return. You might sit in a quiet room and feel the first wave of restlessness rise. You'll want to fill it, with sound, with thought, with plans. But if you wait long enough, something changes. The mind begins to settle. The heart begins to exhale. You start to hear a faint voice inside that sounds like honesty, not dramatic, not desperate, just true. That is the voice of silence, not empty, but deeply alive. It tells you what no one else can, what you really feel, what you truly need, what you no longer wish to carry. And once you've heard it, you begin to crave it, not as escape, but as home. You don't have to go to the mountains to find silence. It lives in smaller spaces, in the minutes before dawn, in the pause between conversations, in the breath before you answer a difficult question. Silence is the teacher waiting between your own words. When you speak less, you begin to hear more, not just others, but life itself. The sound of the rain becomes a story. The way someone looks at you says more than their sentence ever could. There's a quiet strength in people who listen deeply. They don't rush to respond. They understand that silence can hold what words sometimes destroy. In relationships, silence softens the need to win every argument. It helps you hear what is truly being said beneath the surface. In work, silence brings clarity. It lets your ideas breathe before the world edits them. In personal reflection, silence becomes a mirror, not judging, just showing you where you've been and where you might go next. When silence becomes part of your rhythm, life starts to slow to its natural pace. You begin to see that meaning doesn't come from how much you can add to your days, but from how much space you can allow within them. Because silence is not the opposite of sound. It is the background that gives sound its shape, the pause that makes the sentence clear, the stillness that gives motion direction. Without it, everything blurs. In the end, silence does not demand to be heard, it simply waits to be noticed. And when we finally do, we realize it was never empty at all. It was us, beneath the noise, beneath the roles, beneath the rush, quietly waiting to speak.